Vice President Harris was in Seattle yesterday touting the green energy provisions in the act, saying it is clear the clock is not just ticking, it is banging. Michael Regan joins me now live. He is the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Michael, great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So, Michael, it's been 1 year now since the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law, and the EPA released this statement saying that tremendous progress has been made. And it's been made in designing and implementing new programs. Give us a sense of what these programs are and what Americans should be expecting.
Well, listen, we're really excited. 1 year in, and we're off to the races. We have designed and put out for competition a $27 billion greenhouse gas reduction fund designed to leverage hundreds of billions of dollars in clean energy investments. We're excited because that's private capital that we're bringing off the sidelines. We have billions of dollars for community grants where our states and our tribes and our cities can begin to act on those solutions that they've had for a long period of time to invest in a more climate-friendly infrastructure, but also begin to invest in clean technologies. And then we have $2 billion that will focus on our environmental justice communities that are on the front lines that have been combating the climate crisis. We're excited about the progress that we've made, and we're excited about the reaction that we're getting as I travel the country.
So we're talking about progress, but we want to know where things stand right now. Where does the United States stand right now in terms of meeting these climate goals and reducing these emissions by 50% by what? The year 2030, which is right around the corner.
Well, listen, I've said from day one that EPA has a role to play in that through our technology standards. And so what you're seeing is the agency move forward on technology standards focused on cars and trucks, with electric vehicles and low carbon fuel vehicles. We have a power plant rule that we've proposed that we're taking comments on to lower emissions from natural gas and coal. And then we have the Inflation Reduction Act, right? This infusion of billions of dollars of resources that pays complement to those regulatory actions. The United States is well on its way to meeting those targets, the targets of protecting people and the planet, lowering emissions, but also creating millions of jobs.
But is the infrastructure there? I mean, does it exist? I have an EV. I'm excited to have an EV, but I've noticed that the infrastructure doesn't really exist in terms of charging an electric vehicle. How quickly do you think the U.S. will be able to put all of this in place?
Very quickly. We're seeing the resources from the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law really focused on that necessary infrastructure for charging all across the country. But we're also seeing these billions of dollars of grants that we're proposing being utilized by local communities to invest in local charging stations that would not exist but for the Inflation Reduction Act's focus on frontline communities and communities that have not had a seat at the table for these kinds of investments. Listen, we know that we lost some time during the previous administration, and we're making up for lost time, and that's exactly what we're doing. The infrastructure is coming, and it's going to be more resilient and more technologically savvy than we've ever seen in this country.
But Americans seem really confused about the IRA. They seem really confused about the Inflation Reduction Act because we're talking about climate change. We're talking about greenhouse gas emissions. How do the two square?
Well, you know, as we look at tackling this climate crisis, the president has said from day one, this is also an opportunity to deploy advanced technologies and rebuild our infrastructure. And so with that, we have a more technologically savvy and efficient infrastructure, which is keeping money in families' pockets. Their energy prices are lower. We're seeing more efficient utilization of our water infrastructure as well. These technology enhancements will reduce waste, but also keep costs lower, which keeps money in every family's pockets.
Now, one of the authors of the bill, Senator Joe Manchin, has been critical of the Biden administration's use of the IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act, saying that he is planning to push back against anyone looking to undermine the bill, and that, quote, begins with his unrelenting fight against the Biden administration's efforts to implement the IRA as a radical climate agenda. A radical climate agenda. Michael, what do you make of his words?
Well, listen, I am spending time with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, ensuring that at EPA we follow the law, the Inflation Reduction Act, as designed. And so we'll continue to work with Senator Manchin, we'll continue to work with Leader Schumer, we'll continue to work with anyone that wants to see this act executed and implemented in the way it was designed. This law was designed to reach every single person in this country, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, or not affiliated. The president promised to be a president for all people, and this Inflation Reduction Act does just that.
But Republicans continue to threaten to strip away climate funding that is in this act, that is in the Inflation Reduction Act. So how can the administration ensure that these projects that we've been talking about remain protected?
Well, listen, I was in Wyoming just last week looking at some of the technologies that we want to deploy with the Inflation Reduction Act. I've been to other states that have a lot of Republican leadership. And let's just say the conversations on the ground are laser focused on how we deploy these technologies. After all, some of these technologies that we want to deploy domestically, many of our leaders in the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle recognize that we will be able to deploy these technologies internationally in countries like China and India, where we know that they are a little bit behind the curveball in terms of reducing carbon and other climate emissions. So this is an international play. The president's vision is very strong. It's very strong for us domestically, but it's also, again, him walking the walk in terms of saying from day one, we will be climate leaders on the global stage.
Michael, I know you probably have seen the devastation right now in Maui after the wildfires. How much do you think climate change might be to blame? And is there anything in the Inflation Reduction Act that could have prevented these fires?
Well, listen, I know that there are investigations now looking into the causes of the wildfire, but I think we all have to recognize we're seeing wildfires all across this country. We're seeing flooding all across this country, drought, record temperatures. We know that the climate crisis is exacerbating what we're feeling and seeing. And so the Inflation Reduction Act absolutely has resources that begins to create a more competitive environment so that our infrastructure is stronger, so that our response time is stronger, so that we are a more resilient society. We need to be prepared. The resources that the president fought very hard for in the Inflation Reduction Act begins to prepare this country, not just in a defensive posture, but again, on the offense of being globally competitive. And we're excited about this one-year anniversary.
I wanted to go ahead and just keep the attention on Lahaina for a second, because looking at the pictures, we know a lot of that area has been turned to ash, and environmentalists are concerned of the environmental impact specifically, not just on the land there, Michael, but also on the reefs, the oceans. Do you think there's cause for concern months or years down the road? And what can we do here to protect the environment from the aftermath of this devastation?
Well, listen, this is an all-hands-on-deck approach. The entire federal government is laser focused on the situation in Hawaii. And we know that there is damage that is still being assessed today, and we know that there could potentially be some longer-term environmental impacts. At the EPA, it's our job to really focus on the cleanup, the aftermath. And we're going to be there to do that, to clean up the waste, but also to ensure that the water is safe to drink and the air is safe to breathe. And so we're going to deploy all of our resources now and in the near-term future to be sure that the folks in Hawaii have an island and a home and a community to return to. We're all devastated, but we're all with those in Hawaii who are experiencing this very devastating moment.
Michael Regan is the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Michael, thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.